Welcome back to the People's Purple Show. My name is Danny Decker. This is Greg Prinz, and we're going to talk about some regular season football. Finally, the preseason is done. 8 months of football purgatory over, and the season starts. So before we dive in, though, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. So we're sponsored today by Chapter One Films, which is an awesome video production company run by this guy. So if you own a business and you need help telling your story with video, give him a shout. We're also sponsored today by Snyder's, so thanks to Snyder's Pretzel. And of course, we'll give a shout out to our third sponsor today, Trey Wayne. So thanks for being a supporter of the show, Trey. All right, hey Greg, let's talk a little bit about the format for the show for the regular season. You want to tell the people kind of what to expect?
Yeah, so the way the show's going to work, kind of going down the road, I know so far we've been doing recap and kind of predictions in the same show. It's going to change a little bit pace where we're going to do a reaction show kind of right after the games, whenever that lies, whether it's going to be a Tuesday or a Monday or whenever that is, and it's going to be real unscripted, just us being able to vent a little bit, whether it's excitement or dismay, to share that with you guys. And then we should still have our regular kind of more organized formatted show later on in the week, and that could probably vary between different days and also depending on when we play.
Perfect. So basically, early in the week, you can expect to see Greg and I venting, crying, screaming, celebrating.
Hopefully not.
From in a reaction show, and then we'll have our normal preview show later on in the week. So all right, man. So huge week, busy week. We're not even going to talk about the fourth preseason game. Who cares? I never want to see preseason football again in my life. But let's talk about some of the news that's kind of unfolded in the last week and a half. So let's start here, Greg. So Terrence Newman retires and joins the Vikings coaching staff. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's weird. Like that's obviously the one position so far that we know we're real deep in, right? We go out and we get Mike Hughes. We already had a pretty deep cornerback situation going on with Trey Waynes getting better. We've got two elite cornerbacks. We've got Mackenzie Alexander, who was already, in my opinion, like I was foreseeing him kind of taking Terrence Newman's spot a little bit there, just because that last game was so bad in Philly. I mean, he just got burned so many times. And I mean, we knew it. He's old. He wouldn't have the legs that he had before. But he always brought something, right? Like he always brought that old veterans kind of touch to it. And I think that it couldn't be like more perfect than it is now. I mean, we've got Mackenzie Alexander. We've got Mike Hughes kind of moving around in that slot area. I think it also speaks to Zimmer being more impressed with Ben Gideon and wanting to use Iloka more, just because we may not be in the nickel as much as we were, because we were pretty much exclusively in the nickel all last year. I could see it getting changed up a little bit now, especially with that move. It kind of makes me a little more confident. But I like the fact that he's still on the coaching side. I love him. So it's going to be cool to see him on the sideline.
Awesome. All
right, so Danny, B-Rob being cut, this to me was a big shock. Well, how was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see it coming. And again, it's kind of to your point earlier, it's a good sign that Zimmer really trusts our defensive line depth, Weatherly and Bowers and some of those other guys. I think we have a lot of depth on the defensive line, which is a really good thing. I mean, obviously on like an emotional level, I think Brian Robinson was one of those guys that Vikings fans really connected with, and so sad to see him go. He kind of represented the bridge between like the last time the Vikings were good, right? Like the 2009 year with Brett Favre.
That's a good point.
I think he was around in that season, and he kind of was like a bridge between that era and this era. So I'm gonna miss seeing him around. I hope. It sounds like he's trying to get a job somewhere else, going to play for somebody else, and so I'll wish him the best. Hope he doesn't sign in the NFC North. Ideally, like go to the AFC, go sign with the Raiders or something. But surprised, going to miss him, but I think our D-line is in great shape. So, all right, headline number 3, Greg. So Rock Thomas and Mike Boone, who were fighting for the third running back job, they both made the squad. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, we obviously have two good running backs, so most teams don't even necessarily have that. So I feel like it's not going to be as big of an affecting, it's not going to affect their team as much as we may have thought in the preseason. I can see Dalvin Cook being pretty much the every down back with Latavius kind of giving him some relief in certain situations. But even in third downs, I mean, Dalvin Cook, he's good out of the backfield, so I don't necessarily see him having to use him that much. I will say, though, I like that we kept both of them, just because you just kind of figure on somebody getting injured, right? And it just to know that we have all those guys, I mean, it's just starting to look like at every position we're so deep. It just makes me feel so much better, like that we have both of the guys there. Because C.J. Ham's obviously great, but he's not going to be anybody that's running the ball. And I liked Brock Thomas a lot, but Mike Boone clearly got played in the last few preseason games, so I was kind of torn as well. So the fact that they kept both of them, I was happy. I think it's a positive thing. Just because I'm kind of figuring somebody's going to get hurt this year, which 100%. Is not good, but I just Latavius or Dalvin, I could see it happening. So I'm happy. So kind of on that same subject of keeping people in certain positions, wide receiver is a different position where some changes were made. We cut Kendall Wright after signing in the offseason, and we keep Stacy Coley and Zylstra, who, I mean, I haven't seen a whole lot of those guys. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, again, man, it's crazy. Like 3-4 years ago, our receiving core was terrible. We had no receivers, and now we're at a point where we're cutting guys like Kendall Wright. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, you start at the top three, you know, with Thielen, Diggs, and then Treadwell, who people are expecting to make kind of a big jump forward, and that's awesome. And that might be the best three receivers in the league as far as a 1, 2, 3 order. And then you've got Coley, who I think we didn't see much of him this preseason, but we saw a lot of him last preseason, and I think he got into a few games. Fast, explosive playmaker. He's out of Miami, right? Mm-hmm. From UM. You know, man. Fun guy to watch. Like, I'm glad he's on the team. And then Brandon Zylstra, you know, can't say I know a ton about him, but he did really well in camp. He had a big touchdown catch in that fourth preseason game. So, yeah, I just think we have depth at wide receiver, and I love that we're letting some of these young guys make the team and get some playing time. And, you know, hopefully we're just going to be strong in that position for years to come. So that's awesome. So, all right. So this one was not really happy news that we woke up to, I think, on Saturday, or maybe it was Saturday afternoon it happened. Khalil Mack, one of the best pass rushers in the league, is coming to the NFC North playing for the Chicago Bears. What do you think?
Thank God it's the Bears and not the Lions or the Packers. I think we spoke about it earlier where we were just talking about if he had to come to the NFC, which is unfortunate, obviously. It'd be great just to see him to go to some other AFC team and give somebody else problems. But if he had to come to the NFC, there's a lot of other teams I think I would have not liked him to see on, you know, like more than the Bears, because even though they're in our division, it means we're going to see them twice this year. I'm not really worried. I think we can handle them okay. Playing in Soldier Field's going to be rough, but that's always rough. If he went to somebody like the Rams, like something like the Seahawks, who you're kind of happy, like you're finally, like their defense doesn't look that good, the Legion of Boom's deteriorating. They added Khalil Mack, it'd be like, ah. So I'm not super worried just because it's the Bears. Am I worried just for the general health of Kirk Cousins? Sure. like just those two, like there's more of a contrast between Kirk Cousins and Khalil Mack. So like I'm okay with it. You know, if he had to come to the NFC, it's not a big deal for me that he ended on the Bears.
Totally.
So another thing that's non-Vikings related, but kind of Vikings related, Jerick McKinnon, really unfortunate to hear, but he's out for the year with an ACL tear.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, if you play for the Vikings, you adapt like this tendency to get injured. Your knees become weaker. Always non-contact injuries.
Breathing
always
that Minnesota air.
Yeah, terrible timing. I mean, this happened to him apparently on the last play of practice, and it was a non-contact injury, and he tore his ACL. And bummer. Like, I was going to be rooting for him. You know, I think we all like him. It makes week 1 easier for us. So selfishly, like, okay, it makes the Niners a little bit less scary. But yeah, I wanted to see him have a good year. I will say this: at least he got his money. You know, at least he got paid. So he's gonna be all right. He'll be back next year. You hope with a guy like him that like the loss of like his quickness, like he's all about his quickness, you know, and so hopefully he makes a full recovery with his the ACL and he can go on to have a good career for the Niners. So bummer, hope he gets better. That said, you know, the Niners just got a little bit easier, so what are you gonna do? All right, let's see what's next here. All right, man, so the regular season is here. So let's talk for a minute about what we're expecting, man. We're going to see real football on Sunday. But before we get into the Niners, let's talk about the season kind of as a whole. So, Greg, maybe do this. Give me what you think our record is going to be and paint like a best case picture. Like, what is the best case scenario for us this year, and what do you think we're going to do as far as our record goes?
So, I think we can do 12-4. I think that's likely. Best case scenario, I think we could be as good as 14-2. I mean, a lot of those games are toss-ups. So, I mean, if you look at the whole regular season, you got all 16 games. You can kind of chalk maybe 8 or 9 of them up as like they should be sure wins. I would say even in my worst forecast, we should only be like 8-8. But all those other games, they're not like there's a couple games. I mean the Patriots in Foxborough is going to be tough. I don't know if we have any chance of winning that one. It's hard to say. Week 2 in Lambeau, playing the Packers, that's tough. So those are two that I'm like automatically, I just can't see us really winning those. But I don't know. I mean, if we're best case scenario, I think our offense is good. Like that's kind of what it's riding on right now, right? Because we know our defense is good. It's not like it's just last year. It's been really good for several years. It's only gotten better. Like I'm just counting on that being great. The offense is a big question mark because we have Kirk Cousins, but we've never seen him really play before. Like we have a new offensive line. They looked kind of good. We got a new center, but we haven't really seen him put together before. Dalvin Cook's awesome, but he's only played like 3 or 4 games. So literally all of the offense is shrouded in like complete mystery. So if the offense is bad, I think our defense is good enough to beat the teams like we should beat. But if our offense is really good, I don't think there's any. I mean, like aside from those couple games that I said, I still think that we wouldn't be favored in. I think we should be favored in every single game. So I think best case scenario 14-2, but my prediction is 12-4.
Sweet.
So kind of like on a contrasting note. Well, first, what's your prediction as far as as the result, like our final?
I think we're gonna do something like 13-3. Like I'm gonna be optimistic here. I'm gonna call 13-3. I'm gonna say we're gonna lose in New England. Mm-hmm. We're gonna lose to either St. Louis or Philadelphia, and then we're gonna lose one more game.
Okay, I can see that.
Not St. Louis, Los Angeles.
So if the worst case scenario? So let's say, like I said, our offense, if it's good, this is going to happen. What's worst case scenario?
So worst case scenario, record wise, I can't see us doing much worse than like a 7-9, and that would be a disaster. And here's how it's going to happen if it happens, in my opinion. It's all about the offense, like you said, and we've got a new offensive coordinator. We've got a new like nerdy kind of weird quarterback. So that's a big question mark. And then the offensive line is a huge question mark, man. So I think there's no question that our defense is good enough to win games. But I think the offense could struggle. I think it could take longer than people think for us to get adapted to a new quarterback, a new offensive system. I think last year we were really lucky on the injury front. We had very few major injuries last year. Obviously, Dalvin Cook was a big deal, but like our defense was incredibly healthy. Oh, yeah. So I think worst case scenario, we have some injury bugs. We lose a few key players. But even in that case, like I still see us at least being in contention. So I think, to me, the floor on this season is around 8-8, 7-9. But hopefully at the worst case scenario, we're still playing competitive football all the way into like December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always the hope.
Exactly. And I'm sure if we let Uncle Louie on the show today, he'd probably have a different worst case scenario. But no. All right, man. So last thing we're going to talk about here, let's talk about the 49ers. Real football we're going to play. What are you looking for, man? What are you expecting?
Oh, man. I mean, what a crazy team to be playing week 1. I mean, if there was any team in the NFL that you were like, I wonder what they're going to look like this season. I mean, other than maybe the Browns, like the 49ers have to be that team because they stormed out of last year like with 3 huge wins. I think they beat St. Louis like 43-6 or something crazy. I mean, Garoppolo looked like an absolute madman. And he's leading a gang of like misfit receivers into like all these different territories and just smoking them. So he's coming out of those last 3 or 4 games, can't remember how many it was, and now he's coming into the season against one of the top-ranked teams in the NFL. It should be one of the greatest games of the week, in my opinion. I think it's going to be really cool. It also leaves a lot for mystery, right? Because we talked about on the Vikings side, you have half of our team looking like a mystery, the offense, and on the 49ers side, you pretty much have the entire team as being a big question mark. It really does leave a lot up for interpretation. If I had to predict a score, I would think 24-10 Vikings. That's what I'm thinking. I think Jerick McKinnon losing Jerick McKinnon is big for them because they have Alfred Morris, who's supposed to take most of the carries now, but he's not a great receiver out of the backfield, and like that's all Shanahan likes doing.
Yep.
Like it's really what he wants to do, and they have another guy that they're trying to work into it. I forget his name. But
Breida?
Yeah, there you go. And they said they want to implement him more, but he really wasn't getting any first team reps. Because McKinnon was that guy. I mean, that's what McKinnon does best. So it was 100% him. He was going to be the guy. That's why they paid him so much. and he is literally gone. So
Yeah.
I think their offense takes a huge hit. I don't think their defense is anything special. I think it should be a pretty easy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of our easier games, as crazy as that is.
Yeah, I'll say this: we can't afford to lose this game. You know, with Lambeau Field coming up in week 2, we got to win this game. We should win it. You know, I think that Kyle Shanahan is like a pretty brilliant offensive mind.
Sure.
Like, he's a good offensive coach. But that said, he just lost his most versatile weapon in Jerick McKinnon. So I'm with you. I think their offense is going to struggle, and I think our defense, you know, we know who our defense is. Our defense is dominant. So I think we'll hold them to 10 points, maybe 13 points. And really, like, but what's going to be interesting, I think the big variable is how's our offense going to perform. You know, what's Kirk Cousins going to look like? What's Dalvin Cook going to look like? Can't wait to see these receivers. Like, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to say we're going to score somewhere between like 20 and 30 points. So I'll put it at 27-13. Vikings win, start the season off 1-0. And then we go into Lambeau Field next week. Yeah, man. So, all right, let me see if we got anything else here. All right, yeah. So tell me this, all right? So sticking with the Niners for a minute. We'll make this a quick segment, but tell me this. If we lose to the Niners, why are we going to lose to the Niners?
Do you remember 2016, first game of the year we played San Francisco?
Yes, Monday night.
I mean, the rest of that season was just a disaster for San Francisco, and it was a great year for Minnesota. But that first game, we got absolutely trounced. We just looked horrible. I think that's the biggest thing when I'm thinking back on it is, are we going to be that team that kind of comes out, we're nervous, we're new, because there are a lot of new pieces. It isn't like the last 2 years where we were kind of a little bit set. I mean, coming into last year playing the Saints, I mean, that was the same exact team from the year before. We just kind of hit it in stride. The season before that, our defense relatively looked the same, although we did have a new quarterback. I don't know. I think if we come out nervous and it takes us a little while to gel, they could take advantage of that because they're really going in hot. They're going in the exciting team from last year, ready to go. And I could see it looking like it did 2 years ago when we played them the first game of the year. So I think if we go in there nervous and our guys are uneasy and it takes them a little while to gel, we could really lose hold of it.
Fair enough. All right, and I'm going to give the one key thing that has to happen for the Vikings to win, and I think that is we have to protect Kirk Cousins, right? Our defense is going to get the job done. We know our receivers can win their battles. I think Kirk Cousins is going to be able to make the throws, but the big question mark, can we protect Kirk Cousins? Can our line, which is kind of a makeshift line right now, we're not going to have elf line, can we hold off against that San Francisco front seven? I think if we can give Kirk Cousins time in the pocket, we are going to win this game for sure. So.
It's exciting.
All right,
Can't wait.
let's do it. Week 1, here we go.